Right, hi there, hi, welcome back. So this is obviously the second part in the three-part series webinar around logistics and improving the logistics documents and digitalizing that. And what we're going to cover today is sort of a bit more benefits around digitalization and what they can bring to your own organizations, your own processes. So what we've done here is clearly made a three-part series. In August, what we'll do is we'll sort of move, we've got plans which we'll discuss in a short while what that means, but what I'd like to do is to obviously say thank you for joining the session from myself and Diane Charlotte, who will be giving the demonstrations today. So what we're really going to focus on today is to give you two quick examples from the stories we've done before around enhancing that and bringing in a bit more content around that as a topic. And really what we want to do is bring as much value as quickly as possible. So it's going to be a slightly shorter session for yourself, but really covering off what you need to know. So let's begin. So we welcome you to the next session. What we obviously hope to cover off as you've registered for the webinar today is covering off sort of converting these documentations and receiving a digitalization benefit for your efforts. So using what you've got and maximizing what you could have into the future, and really covering off some important elements, not just now but into the future, and hopefully expanding upon those and demonstrating what we mean by that. So let's continue. So as a first step, we'll cover off what we're going to discuss during the session today. And for those who are obviously aware, this is a logistics series. They'll sort of come towards August when we'll all close and start up the conversation socially about what more is out there as far as requirements and needs within your organization and what's on the horizon as far as the market's concerned. So we'll plan to continue this conversation into sort of the social media forums. And for this session, we'll be talking about QR codes and what they can bring to not just a digital document, but what this can bring to your actual overall system and workflow, to whether it's being deep dive into your customer or whether it's expanding your supply chain and having a grip over that, which is all important right now, and controlling it as much as you can without letting it get too out of control. And then an exciting sort of discussion point around the power of engagement and what that can mean, especially when you can consider organizations dealing with customers in a brand new way and adapting for the future demands, which aren't too far away. And then sort of discussing a story and a demonstration about what we mean by this, and essentially covering off the continuation of the webinar series stories that we've been discussing. So I hope you enjoy. So right, while we're talking about logistics documents and digitalizing this, as we all know, this whole process and this whole transformation is affecting the entire industry, whether we like it or not. And what we're working on passionately at Symtrax is really to allow organizations to be as flexible as they can be to match their customers' endeavors and their customer requirements, and really touching upon the whole reason why. So why we are discussing alternatives as far as a logistics document and digital document is concerned, and an enhancement which includes QR codes and what that means for your overall organization. A lot of people just see this as an opportunity to just add a feature, but really for us it means a lot more than that. It's a complete shift in the way businesses can operate together and hopefully be as seamless as possible. So for us at Symtrax, we hope to work with our customers as well as our partners, as well as sort of new projects, and really talk with our customers as to what this actually means for their organization. Because for us, we see so much potential and capability, and best practices are being made right now within the organization, as well as the industry itself. For those who sort of are well aware as to this demand and this requirement, it doesn't just become a feature within the document, it actually delivers a lot more than that. So we'll go into that in a bit more detail. So yes, QR codes. So what do they mean for an organization like yourself? We've discussed benefits in the previous session and what that could mean in a slightly different perspective. But in regards to QR codes, benefits outweigh the constraints, really. So from a digital document perspective, there's a lot more rigor around the security and the steps you need to go through. And we'll touch upon that in the demonstration as to what QR code can mean, not just from a process perspective, but from a compliance perspective, as well as making the organization run faster, and what that looks like for your organization. So we'll touch on that. And then obviously we're all interested in this, especially we'll show you a working example around making sure we reduce late payments as much as possible. And we can do that in three ways. We can make sure our partners are kept close and the smaller businesses are looked after, as well as sort of dealing with the much larger clients you might have as they open the door to, this has happened a lot within the retail space, open the door as far as quicker payments. So we need to leverage that. We can't let that gate close without sort of systematically bringing in some processes to deal with that. So we try and see it in a three-way approach. We will touch on specifics. We'll try and touch upon how organizations, countries are dealing with this. We'll pick an example out of Switzerland to showcase to yourself, as well as sort of how we can possibly deal with, from a responsive and efficiency perspective, working with partners where they might need, with customers, where they might need a lot more information and not just dealing with a piece of paper that they need to sign or approve and so on, but actually making it valuable to their customers' workflow. So we'll touch upon the delivery note and what that means to an organization, such as the example we've given, why we'll be talking about that. So, really when it comes down to it, we want to make sure that we're aligned as much as possible with the customer, giving them as much value as possible. So let's sort of dig into a bit more depth as to what that could look like. And importantly, we must remember we need to try and make this as real as possible. So really for our perspective, we are trying to make sure that organizations don't just benefit together, but they actually engage together. So the power of engagement really stems from our initiative to work together with our customers. And really, a lot of organizations might struggle when it comes to customer demands. But if you could categorize the demands and the benefits you receive together, and make them aware of the benefits, and to work together in a straightforward way, and not just constantly dealing with some challenges and cases and problems really within the relationship. We want to make sure that the relationship and engagement is at the foremost of the relationship, and really understanding more and more about how each other's businesses operate, and we can offer those benefits. And as far as you can ask the open and honest questions as to whether the document is suitable, and to change them according to each customer's requirements. We've used 3 as an example, which I've touched upon, but really you could have more. You need to understand that, where certain organizations out there are still using checks, and that they're still making sure in a way that they are making things as rigorous as possible, and that using their own processes. But really, you've got a list of clients that are leading edge and want to be involved in EDI and making sure that everything's as well-oiled as possible. And then you've got organizations out there that have unfortunately made their processes restrictive, which hasn't helped not just you, but it really hasn't helped them when they consider they haven't digitalized their entire workflow, and that can be a challenge. So you can help with that. You can work around that. You can pull them into a better place, as it were. But really, the important element behind here is is to make sure that we're engaging and leveraging the opportunity to engage with each other's organization as best as possible, and making a stand together to make sure that we're serving each other as best as we can. So what we'll go into now is a bit more about sort of what we can do together, and cover off the story that we touched on before. So what we'll do is we'll go into our first demonstration, and hopefully it'll be useful to us all. Right, before I hand over to Di and Charlotte to demonstrate what we mean by this, what I really want to touch on is, from a delivery note perspective, is for us to focus on letting QR codes make a difference and make the business operation safer. And that's not just a case of moving. This whole COVID-19 situation has meant that we've got to reduce the amount of physical touches and so on and so forth. But actually, the digital document makes it easier and safer for the customer to receive the document, because they might have requirements to their specific needs depending on the products you provide and so on and so forth. So I'm just wanting to make you aware of that, and hopefully just reflect on that whilst we discuss this. So over to you, Di and Charlotte.
Code can really be used to enhance your documents. So if we take the example from last time, which were a delivery note, we can imagine that regarding the goods which are going to be delivered, we would want to show some special informations which are not on the document. So I created a small database who connects. So here we can imagine that these could be chemicals in this example, but it could be anything. So here you can see that on the link related to this chemical we have many informations, like how to store the chemicals, which can be really useful for instance, for a site manager who is going to receive them. And so that's what's going to happen here. So I'm going to put a QR code in which I'm going to fill a variable I created, who allows me to link this material description. So I'm just going to search thanks to compleo the information in the database. So here the link. And I'm also add a condition, because we only want this QR code to appear if we have specific, if there is a link. I mean, in this example it would be if the chemicals have a special way to be stored, if there are some special instruction. And I'm going to run the template. So and the QR code is going to be the informations related to the material description. So here it's going to be about acetone. And so now the delivery note is sent to the site manager, who is going to sign it. And if you are interested in how we did that, and or to get more information about that, you can look at our previous webinar in which we were speaking about validation and signature. So I think it's gonna arrive in a really short amount of time. Here it is. And so if we click on the document to sign it, so here we are taking to compleo website. And if you scan this QR code, you can see that it goes to the acetone informations.
Right, thanks for that, Di and Charlotte. So that was a useful illustration, a quick illustration of how what a significant difference that can make, depending on your exact needs for your customer. So we've earmarked the whole safety and making sure the chemicals are measured and stored in the right location. So that can be a working example for yourself that you can take away to your customers that we can help adopt with. But from a discussion perspective, there's many more. This QR code has a lot more benefits around this area, not just in sort of safety, but also sustainability and so on and so forth. So hope that's useful. So the next demonstration that Di and Charlotte will be covering is around the invoice that we discussed in the first session, and really letting a QR code help the whole logistics process. And really, we're going to give some working examples from Switzerland, where they've got what's called Swiss QR, which essentially makes any organization in Switzerland pay a lot quicker than any other country in the whole world. So essentially, that runs off the back of QR codes and the new technology around that. So it's becoming part of the entire country's business, B2B and B2G's workflow and procurement systems. So that's a real interesting niche that I think personally, as an organization at Symtrax, as well as our involvement there in that market, in the e-procurement and e-invoicing market. But me personally, I think this sort of model will spread, whether it's sort of QR coding. I think what's going to end up happening is the whole QR coding will merge with the XML formats within PIPL across Europe, and that will sort of merge into other demands around the world. So Singapore have done the equivalent as far as e-procurement, but as far as a quick win, QR coding seems to be working very well in Switzerland, and we'll cover that now. So over to you, Di and Charlotte.
Thanks, Kevin. So hi, everybody. Today we wanted to explain you more about e-invoicing. So as you see here, we have an invoice who is sent to a customer who is in Switzerland. So over there are new regulation who allows you to pay via a QR code. So with the compleo layout, you can generate lots of barcodes. So normal QR code, but also Swiss QR code. So that's what we've done here. And what you can do is put the IBAN. So here, for now, there are only Swiss IBAN that can be taken into account. So let's imagine that in this example, the American company has also a Swiss account. So here you can enter all the information. So the creditor details are always going to be the same, but you can also put a variable. So regarding your customer, you won't have to change anything. It's going to be generated automatically, and also put some additional details and so on. And so now we're going to see how the invoice is going to be sent to a new customer. So here I've put a new scenario in supervisor, and what we're going to see is that the factor is going to be so here I just put a new one, but in real life it's going to be generated automatically by your ERP. And as we can see, we just received an email with the invoice attached with the QR code. So we're just gonna open it, and as you can see, we have all the informations. And here the Swiss QR code. So if you scan it, you're gonna have all the information. So for now, it's only used in Switzerland, but as you know, this is something that is coming in many other countries. So that's why we wanted to show you this particular example, as we are gonna use it in the future.
So, wow, yes, so appreciate that. Thanks very much, Di and Charlotte. So really for us, as you can work out, we're trying to help organizations become more intelligent about automation and using it as much as you can. Not to say it can be used everywhere, but as Di and Charlotte have illustrated, there are examples which can be very useful to organizations like yourselves in the logistics market. Obviously, this works in other markets, but today we'll be focusing on your market, your area of interest, your expertise, and please feel free to share at any time in the chat room any questions. But what we do plan to do is to obviously circulate this within social media. Please do join that area. And what we do really want to cover, and as almost like a promotional for the webinar series, is to make you aware that we're setting up meetup groups, and those groups basically allow customers to discuss their difficulties and be upfront and honest with a select group of audience, which could include yourselves, which basically highlights the areas where they've used Symtrax, they've worked with Symtrax, but importantly, why they work with Symtrax. It's not just a case of saying, we're the best and so on and so forth. It's actually to find out how this applies to yourself. So we're trying to open that up to yourself. So feel free to get in touch. So these are my details. For those who want to get in touch with regards to the promotion, please use my QR code from LinkedIn to get in touch. But feel free to email me with an interest to join that. So we've been working with Wincanton, and we want to share that with you about what they're doing with us and how extensively they're working with us. And the whole market's busy, but clearly you're interested to find out what's interesting to yourself, and more importantly, why big players like Wincanton are using Symtrax. And we can share that Wincanton can share what that means to their organisation, to what that means to the changing market, and really discuss openly across peers. So it's a peer-to-peer conversation rather than a listening to the vendor. So yeah, feel free to get in touch, and I hope you enjoy the session. Yes, no webinar could be complete without having the social tags, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Feel free to reach out. Use Symtrax. I think for YouTube and Twitter, it's Symtrax software. Feel free to touch base with ourselves, and as I said before, we'll be continuing this conversation in a social regard, and hopefully be useful to yourself to discuss this in a bit more detail, and also to deal with meetup sessions where we hope to invite you into a private group with our customers they've used before in Canton, who currently work extensively with Symtrax, and we'll share the pluses and minuses, as it were, not just within the partnership, but also within the industry, and hopefully that could be of use and value to yourself. We're obviously not doing it in a physical form, but we're going to be doing it more socially and online. So from us, Di and Charlotte and myself, hope you enjoyed the session, and hope to see you at the next session, which should be in early August. So thanks very much.